Hello everyone. Just another little short, I wouldn't call this one a rant, just some observations and thoughts really about this whole thing with working on people's bikes and rebuilding or part rebuilding and part restoring. I don't like doing full concourse type restorations. I have done a couple of them, and to be honest, they're such a pain in the neck. I don't really want to do them. I much prefer to rebuild an engine, get it working right, rebuild a bike, reassemble perhaps some nicely re-chromed parts onto a repainted bike. I've got a friend who does painting, and he's local. I don't mind getting bits and pieces painted. Chroming used to be something that I could get done fairly locally, but sadly that's gone now. So I try and avoid that side of it, but I'm more than happy to do something like this one behind me, which actually, whether the camera's picking it up from there or not, I'll probably pick the camera up towards the end and have a closer look. But the rear mudguard on this bike has actually been painted, and it looks like a sort of polished alloy or borderline dull chrome, and it kind of matches the front mudguard, which is the original chrome, which doesn't look brand new but is quite presentable. But anyway, all that sort of stuff, fine. But recently it's happened a couple of times, not very often, but you get a bike here, I work on it, okay, it might be just get it going properly, and it needs perhaps some timing adjustments, check the carburetor settings, things like that. Just, it's not running quite right, just get it going for me. Anyway, we do that, and then of course what happens is, if it is perhaps taxed for the road and in complete and good enough order to move under its own power, I may well decide that, right, okay, it's done now, let's just have a ride on it and make sure it's ready to go home. And sometimes I'll come back, and more often than not, yeah, great, that's it, it's ready to go home now. But there are times when, like for instance in a recent case, I'll ride the thing, and before I get to the main road, oh my god, you pull the brake lever and nothing happens, nothing at all. There's very little in the way of stopping power, and I'm not going to carry on with the ride. I'll bring it back home, have a word with the owner and sort of say, well, this, that and the other needs doing before I go out on it again. Now that is at the point where sometimes an owner might say, okay, I'll deal with that, you've got it running, that's fine. Other times they might say something like, oh, well, just do whatever it needs to get it right, and you know, let me know when you're done. Now that can turn out to be the tricky one, because sometimes, and when I treat these bikes like my own bikes, and I want them to ride well, go well, handle well and stop well, it can entail quite a bit of work to get them to a point where I'm happy with them. And I think that's where I got caught out recently, and sadly an owner got taken by surprise a bit as well, because I did everything I thought needed doing, and then let the owner know, right, your bike's ready, it's X amount and you can come and get it when you want. And that's when we got the, I wasn't expecting it to be that much. And fair comment, I usually keep owners informed as we're going along, you know, how much we're at, you know, and where we're at and what it's cost so far, and do you want me to keep going or whatever. And that was the case with this one. But after doing the work initially outlined, there was a lot more that needed doing to it, and I basically got the okay, or thought I had, to do it all. And when I got it all done, I get that, how much? As much as that? I wasn't expecting it to be that much. Well, if your bike is running nicely, but it's dangerous to ride because it's got no brakes, I think personally I would like the reassurance that it's got some means of stopping should anything happen on the road, and it'd be worth spending whatever reasonable amount you might sort of have to fork out to get that sorted. Now the bike in question, it had a twin leading shoe front brake that was way out of adjustment, and it was filthy inside with, there was rust, there was grime, there was even a bit of grease I think smeared around the brake linings. Anyway, I took care of all that, but it had to have the front wheel fitted and removed a couple of times while I sort of played about with it, if you like, until I got it where I thought it was right, and then I put it all back together, rode it up and down the lane. Oh yeah, this brake feels good. So I went further afield on it then, and it had a fantastic front brake and I was very happy with it, but it took quite a bit of time to get it set up right. And you know, you get a lot of things like that. Even the rear mudguard and subframe on this bike, believe it or not, to assemble that lot took me nearly 2 hours before I was happy with it. The reason being, there was some of the old bolts that held it together in the first place, the threads were so tired and worn on them, I had to replace them, and alright, I had to dig around a bit and find some bolts that would do the job, cut them to length. I had to refit the wiring through it. I had to put this together without scratching it. It looks like it should be a 5 or 10 minute job, but some of these things just turn into far more fiddly projects than you could ever envisage, really. But the main thing is to get them done properly and tidily without ending up knocking the thing about and scratching it and doing all sorts of damage. You've got to take care, and I always do that. But if somebody decides that they think I've charged them too much or it shouldn't have cost that much, I can assure anybody that every hour I put in on anything is a very necessary hour, and I'm not afraid to say that for long enough I've charged a very reasonable and low £25 for an hour, soon to go up to a whopping 30, which I think is still very, very reasonable. But every hour that I put in on something is an hour that I can vouch for, and an hour that is needed to be spent on doing the project and getting it right. And there's probably people that would do it in fewer hours than me at higher or lower whatever rates, I don't know, but I can only speak for myself and the way I work and the rate I work at, and if I take too many hours, I'm not going to apologise for that, because I like the bike to be right, and whenever I've got a complete bike that runs and can be taken out on the road, I'll do that. I'm prepared to put my life on the line to test your bike and make sure I'm happy with it, rather than just sort of get it off the bike lift and phone you up and say come and get it and take it away. To the best of my knowledge, you'll have a bike that is ready for you to go out on and enjoy safely, and I think that probably warrants the time I spend on working on them and preparing them, and as a result what I charge. But I could be wrong, but that's the way I do it, and there's plenty of other places available to go to where I'm sure they won't charge any less than I do, and they may take even longer. But anyway, it's nothing to do with the guy that owns this bike, which is coming along nicely, and there's some hours gone into this one, I'm sure, I can tell you. But let's just have a look at that mudguard again. There it is. It sort of looks like polished aluminium, and goes quite well with the front one. So again, time well spent, I would think, anyway.